for those that did not hear, the state party, I guess, met this weekend for the Republicans, which, you know, should be like a hazard or warning on that, at your own risk type thing. But yeah, the headlines making the news here, except now my screen's kind of covering up. Anti-Islamic ex-lawmaker named Oklahoma GOP chairman. Yeah, hate to see it. So you got yeah, you're not off to a great start here. So John Bennett was a Republican from Salisaw, and he was elected probably in the early part of the Tea Party revolution, back when that happened initially. And so he is sort of this, I mean, colorful's kind of a gross way to put it, but
and offensive to colors.
Yeah, very, very. So anyway, he's this guy that basically made a name saying completely unhinged crap over and over. He his biggest target was he served in the military, presumably in the 21st century never-ending wars that America decided to get into. And so he professes a strong dislike for Islam and all believers, I guess, of it. He is also made news back in the previous presidential election for saying that Secretary Hillary Clinton should have faced a firing squad for treason. And yeah, he is now your Oklahoma GOP chair, so he'll be leading the party for the next few years. He served 8 years in the Oklahoma House, so technically he could come back for a few more if he so desired it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's a family portrait, if you needed to see that. So, I mean, yeah, just total weirdo, also a bigot, you know, like, what else here? He's also a pastor. I mean, you know.
It's interesting how many Oklahoma lawmakers like have that nice little duo of being like bigot, pastor. It goes
Gun
hand
fanatic.
in hand. Yeah, it just all goes together.
Violent reactionary. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, anyone from Oklahoma, I guess, isn't terribly surprised by it. But it does approach like a certain level of like parody even. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, like, we all dress in flag stuff and wave our guns around. I mean, I know people who love their guns, and like even they would definitely think this picture was weird as hell. Like, just weird. Like, I'm not even sure who the target audience is, or the target audience for this is that big. Like,
well, it's hard because you talk about parody, and it's like, I remember growing up, people would be like, "Oh, you're from Oklahoma. Do you live in teepees and ride horses to school?" And I'd be like, "No, that's offensive." Yeah. But yes, I do have a girl who rides her horse to elementary school. And now it's like this whole image has now changed. And it's like, of course, that's what people expect. Like you said, Oklahomans expect this. I don't expect my pastor to do that. That dude's amazing. But, I feel like if you're talking to people outside Oklahoma, they're like, oh, yeah, that seems to pin the nail right on the head right there.
Yeah. And I love it, too, as a state marketing thing, because you're like, I mean, does everybody in Oklahoma line up and take family pictures with their guns wrapped in the flag? And it's like, no. I mean, that's just the weird ones, like the chair of the Republican Party. I mean, it's just those outliers.
Just the off-brands, yeah.
I mean, it's just like imagining, as weird and psychotic as Elon Musk is, it's like, I don't even think he's this weird. I'm just being honest.
Did you see what he named his kid? It's not like this guy named his kid AR-15.
Yeah, that's true. It's just a different combination of letters and numbers there. Fair Fair point. So Bennett also, as we mentioned, a pastor. So he gets to open the house today in prayer at 1:30. I would Google this, but I really don't want to end up on some super scam website. Lee Creek Assembly of God in Muldrow. Yeah. Anyway, I guess that's one of his churches. And just two, sorry, right-wing crazy news website here. It's gonna probably infect me with 40 viruses, but. General Flynn makes his second endorsement and throws support behind John Bennett for GOP chair. So, yeah, Flynn, and I want to say this is a picture from the same. Here, is this same play? They don't have a picture from the. Yeah, it's the same place, right? So when General Flynn was in town for Langford's opponent, Bennett was there supporting, because this looks like you can see the shiplap and the flags and the lighting. Anyway, I think this is the same place. So anyway, so Bennett's all up in that. Yeah, so that's Bennett in a nutshell. He was at the launch for the guy who's running against Langford. But to go back to the article and bring up he won the election, but who else was in there? and you have Representative Charles Ortega. So I know we got some folks from the Altus area that watch our show. Your former state rep. So yeah, Charles Ortega was one, and then Jenny White, who is the current mayor of Luther. And if you are in the education realm, you may also know her from ROPE. ROPE was a watchdog for public education, mostly focused on Common Core. So, by 2016, 17, 18, that had long run its course, and nobody gave a shit anymore. And, we all moved on with our lives. But man, for a few years there, Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment. Such a weird acronym. Anyway, she was a big deal in that, and they were total psychos. Part privatized education, part homeschool cult stuff. But anyway, Jenny White was big on that. Oh, sorry. Here, my website keeps cutting off. And then Charles Ortega was a legislator from down in the Altus area. But John Bennett won first ballot, so he is our new Republican Party chair. But here's a post I just wanted to bring up from Adam Soltani. He's the executive director of CARE, which is a civil rights group for Muslim folks that does great work in the state, really just trying to humanize and provide a voice for a community that is routinely targeted and marginalized on the basis of religion. And so, here's his sort of reaction. He has a lot of the headlines from 2016. It wasn't just a one-time thing. Bennett made the news repeatedly for attacking Muslims. So, that is the GOP chair. And, you think Trumpism, maybe ran its course. You think that maybe, since he got booted off Twitter, people are getting a little tired of this stuff, but clearly not the case. And so, I think the thing to kind of ask and look at is, where does this take it? It means they are hard leaning into the bigotry, the culture war. I'm sure he's going to be out with a treatise on cancel culture and all this other stuff. And we talk about this a lot, but it's just to me, this is worse than your kind of traditional business Republicans that just sort of hate poor people, because it's I mean, that's terrible and leads to a ton of bad public policy. But whenever you're just like, all you've got is this racism, xenophobia, and bigotry, and you know, hate poor people,
Well, I think though that
it's
like
really hard to get anywhere.
if you really look at where like the Republican Party has come from, like hating poor people is a branch of hating black and brown people.
Sure.
And hating BIPOC people, like in general. I think that I remember, you know, hearing the over and over again, like Trump is saying the quiet part out loud, you know, and I think that's really true. I think that these people have always been in this movement. And then there's just like this on sweep of them being able to now come out. You know, it's not like these ideas have appeared. It's not like they're, you know, sparked now with Trump. It's just like he just gave them a platform, and now he gave them this like weird ability to like tie these business Republicans' arms behind their back, and really like lean into this bigotry, just like you were saying.
And it's just, I mean, yeah. And I watched a really long video from a guy that I like that talked about like kind of this like hopelessness of our current moment, where it's just like, every time you think it can't get worse, like they just manage to take like one step closer to fascism and this like radical hatred of other people. Like, I mean, there is no basis. Like, there is no basis for anything he said about Muslim people or, you know, whatever other things that the GOP is staying on anti-immigrant stuff. I mean, there's no basis in reality for any of this stuff. Like, these are just bigoted statements by hateful people, and it's scapegoating, right? I mean, it's just it's trying to distract people from like the actual problems we have: healthcare, you know, better education for our kids, mass incarceration, whatever. Go down the list. It's like, instead of dealing with any of that, we need you to hate these people over here that make up small groups
like
of the
all of those
population.
problems are very much like self-made problems. Like, we as Americans have created like a healthcare industry that is broken, an incarceration system that is broken. Like, it's so much easier to be like, I blame that guy, quite frankly, than like looking in on ourselves and like self-examining what we need to do to fix that, because it's so much easier to be like, well, yeah, but this dude over here seems kind of sketchy.
Yeah, I mean, and so then, like, so the anecdotal story I'll tell is so I worked with I worked in the private sector for like 9 years before I started getting interested in politics. That was about 10 years ago now. Just to give you an idea of how old I am. But when I worked in the private sector, I worked with a relative of the late Henry Bellman, who, for Oklahoma history or political history buffs, was a well-known and fairly famous Republican governor in a time when Democrats dominated state politics in Oklahoma. So, I mean, he was very well liked, fairly moderate, I think, on a lot of things, relatively speaking, especially in context of the current Republican Party. But like, I knew this relative of his, who is now getting into GOP politics and probably voted in this election. Like, that's like becoming a partisan creature. And like, I knew us when we were in our early 20s, and neither of us were particularly involved in politics. And I just like, I really do have questions. And like, I know her husband real well, or fairly well. Like, you know, he's a musician and like kind of a party guy, because I worked in the event business back in the day, like live events, concerts. Like, you know, these are not people that were ever worried about immigrants or, you know, Muslim bigotry or any of that stuff. Like, these were just like normal people, like, and young people looking for love and working a job and, you know, having fun. And I just like I know my own political path, which, you know, I'm very progressive and leftist, and, you know, feel like I've learned a lot about how our systems work. But I'm just trying to understand the arc, you know, of these other folks that have ended up, you know, electing John Bennett as your spokesperson for the next however many years. Like, that, it's crazy to me. Like, I genuinely wonder, like, what happened to people, like, and how how they got there, because like I mean I know these people personally. Like, you were not this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you might have been weird, and you might have had some weird beliefs in the back of your heads, and you might have, like, I don't know, been scared of people of
Right.
color or something. Like, I don't know. But if you were, you didn't talk about it very much. Like, it wasn't like the thing you let off with.
Right. I mean, I think that like, being like, what is your path? I mean, I think that people change and evolve. I do want to point out though that you describe people who are young as just trying to find love and trying to work a job. I love that. I want
Phase of
you
your
to keep,
life. I mean,
yeah, the
phases of
crazy
life.
life, totally. But I think it's true that like these things build on each other. Like they build in the back of people's heads. And there's so many people that I was like, oh, we were such great friends. And then you meet them on the street and you're like, you're insane now, actually. And it's like, when you're childhood friends or even like friends in your early 20s, unless you're someone like myself who is just all involved in politics all the time, those things don't come up unless someone brings them up. And there's so much mentality around oh, we don't talk about politics in the family, and I feel like that gets carried out to like, oh, you don't talk politics with the friends until something feels like the system's no longer working for you. Like that's when people care about politics. It's when they feel like the system that is working and is in place is going great, and then the moment they start to care and like really be active and vocal is when they feel like something's happening that threatens their way of life. Which is why you get this like so harsh response from people saying that like immigrants, saying that like people who believe in Islam or Catholicism, even like, or Asian Americans, like they're like, oh, that's something we can attack, and that's something that we can look for to say like they're the problem. It's not us. It's not our system of government, but something is changing, and they must be the problem.